welcome to Mission to Inspire. We've got someone wonderful. Oh my God, you need to hear this from the horse's mouth. I'm not going to say a lot. I'm not going to say so much, but I'll leave it to him to introduce himself. His name is Robert Wolf. Hi, Robert. You're welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. I much appreciated. Appreciate your time and inviting me to your podcast.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Rob Wolf. I'm a doctor. I'm a radiologist. I was born in Detroit. My parents are from Hungary. My mission now is talking about my dad's story and my mom's story and what they went through in Nazi Hungary and Communist Hungary, but we'll get to that in a minute. Raised in Detroit, Detroit area, Detroit, Michigan. I was one of three Jewish people in high school that was about 40% African American. So we were a subset of Detroit. Detroit was about 60% African American at the time, growing up in the 60s and 70s. We had one synagogue in our whole county. We had about 100 Jewish families in the whole county, so it was sort of sparsely populated, but never felt any racism or anti-Semitism growing up. With all the mix in high school, and we used to pick on each other back in 7th grade and 9th grade just because we were small and unsuspecting, and so we got picked on for that reason. But later on, I never felt any anti-Semitism or racism at all back in the day. So that said, and again, I was a minority. I was one of three Jewish kids in my whole high school. So moving forward, I went to Tufts University for college near Boston, excellent school. I was very fortunate to get in there. Just got back from my 40-year class reunion from that university, which I don't know where the time went. And then I went to University of Michigan Medical School, so back to my home state, and then bounced back to New England for my training. I did a year internship at a Boston University affiliated hospital, then called Framingham Union Hospital. I did my radiology at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, and I did a neuroradiology fellowship at Yale. So now I'm, excuse me, now I'm 30 years old. My indentured servantry days are over finally, and I finally get a job. So I've been in the radiology field for about 36 years now, and I've been working part-time for 18 years now, actually, minus 1 year of retirement after my mom passed, and we'll get to that in a minute too. So I'm still doing radiology 2 days a week, X-ray and ultrasound. I do miss doing MRIs. I sometimes miss the hospital setting, but right now I've been working from home for 6 years, and it works out well, but because in between cases I can work on my book and on and on. So the book is called Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. I'll show you the floor model here.
Yes.
Quick. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not a big into boasting and patting myself in the back. I'm sorry?
Can we see the book again?
Oh, Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom.
Right.
And as you can see, it's won 4 awards, and I still don't even know what to do with that. I mean, I'm not boasting about it. I'm very proud. I owe a lot of that to my co-author, Janice Harper, who's an excellent writer, and she turned my book into something really special, so I prefer to call it our book. And we picked up a publisher, Amsterdam Publishers, right from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, near you. And this is all they do is Holocaust-related stories, although this story is more than Holocaust because it spans little-known Hungary from World War I all the way to the end of the Hungarian Revolution in 1956. So it's quite a wide range of time frame and how my dad went through it and all of that. So besides being in medicine, what happened was my parents in the 70s wrote my dad's autobiography, and they went from paper and pencil to a typewriter to a computer, and then I finally read the manuscript probably 30 years ago, but didn't think much of it at the time. I remembered his first escape. He had 4. My dad had 4 escapes, and we'll talk more about that too if you want. Twice from Nazi Hungary, twice from Communist Hungary. A man without a home many times, but he and my mom wrote down the autobiography back in the 70s, and they wrote the stories as though they'd happened the previous day. The way the table was set, the smells, how scared he was when he was on the run, the sights, the sounds, the details of the conversations. They remembered it like it happened the previous day. They were very sharp people. They were Holocaust educators. They were history educators. They were also very well-rounded people, cultured. They liked museums, the arts, opera, theater, travel, education, all of that. So very, very sharp, very smart people. So autobiography in the 70s when my dad was finally established in the Detroit area. He became an OBGYN, by the way, and delivered over 10,000 babies in the Detroit area, which is, that's the punchline of the book. And it's also called Redemption. I mean, after everything he went through. So he brought 10,000 lives into this world after everything he had to go through. So my dad died in 1997, unfortunately, and my mom died in 2016, unfortunately. And when my mom passed away, the book was now on a disc, and a historian friend of the family handed me the disc and said, "You got to look at this. You got to read this." And I didn't think much of it at the time because I was real busy taking care of my mom's affairs for about a year. And then I retired for a year in 2017, 2018. And I wasn't really going to go back to work. But a friend of mine from Michigan asked me, he says, "We're really short radiologists. Can you help us out a couple of days a week?" And so now I've been doing that for 6 years. But what that did was brought me to the book. It's kind of corny, but the disc sort of called out to me, sort of like Superman's kryptonite is kind of my comparison. A little corny, but it literally did. So between cases, as a radiologist, we have two screens. We've got a left screen with the patient list, the work list, and the right screen with the images. So what I did in between cases, the left screen was my dad's autobiography, and the right screen was me dictating, changing the words into a biography, third person rather than first person. And so now we're done finally, 2019. We queried some agents, we queried some publishers, very little success. Had a couple of beta readers look at it, and one of them knew Janice, my co-author, and said, you should show this book to her. And so Janice took a year and change to change the book around. Instead of being just a straight up biography, point A to B to C, Dad did this, and this. She changed it up to parallel stories, converging stories, in and out of time frame, conversations, letters to and from home, and really turned it into a very special novel. So the book has been released since very late in 2022. So we're about 18 months in. Still really busy talking about the book and marketing the book and really fighting anti-Semitism. And, my parents wrote the story in the 70s as though they knew I was going to do this. Like they knew that I would have the stories resurface. And if you knew me 6 years ago, you would say, this guy's never going to do this, because I'm not a writer. I was trained in science and math and anatomy, radiology, never really a writer. I had to write papers, of course, along the way, and medical and otherwise. But I had a great team help me with this, and people that read the story said, yeah, and I thought this too, that the miracles in my dad's stories are so amazing, that not just his escapes, but how he was treated poorly and treated well, and the kindness of humans and the cruelty of humans. It's all in there. I mean, and then with anti-Semitism in the backdrop throughout, I never thought that I'd be seeing what I'm seeing now 6 years ago. I mean, the anti-Semitism was always around. I mean, we can go back to the Old Testament when we talk about anti-Semitism and racism, and the Muslims had to undergo racism, and the Christians too. Everybody, not just the Jews, but it's ridiculous. I mean, we can talk enough about racism and anti-Semitism, how wrong it is. But the messages were clear in my dad's book, how he had to fight it off in his own way. He wasn't at Auschwitz or a concentration camp, but he was in forced labor camps. So he was useful. He was a young man during World War II. And he ended up in a forced labor camp under the Soviet regime too, it turns out. So not for as long and not as harrowing, but certainly the Jews were poorly treated in Hungary from the 30s all the way, who knows until when. I mean, the communists remained were the leadership in Hungary for many years, even after my parents left the country in 1956. So, and that's my motivation for doing the book. That's my motivation for doing the story. And the more people that are out there protesting, the more people that are talking about hate for Israel or for American Jews or whatever, the more I want to fight them off. I want them to read the book. Now, most of them won't, but fortunately, 99% of people have the sense of normalcy, have the sense of family, well-being, peace, career, the need for education. So I don't have to convince people that prejudice and racism are wrong, but I just like to get them on my side. And while I do that, educate them about my dad's section of it, my dad's little corner of it, and how he had to endure it. And people realizing, myself too, that what happened to my dad could happen to any one of us. It could happen from a bad neighbor, a bad business deal, a bad state or local government, federal government, foreign government, a natural disaster, anything like that could cause any one of us to be homeless or on the run, or looking for our next meal, not knowing where we're heading, not knowing where our family is. And my dad did just that and survived it with an amazing attitude, just an amazing outlook on life. And you would never know what my dad went through the way he was delivering babies and loving to do it and loving people. And it's inspiring to me. And that was the motivation for this whole project.
For the whole project, for writing the book. So how has the process of writing and sharing it impacted you personally?
Oh boy, it's very gratifying. Some days it's frustrating because some days I feel nobody cares. I just if I can't convince rabbis or Holocaust museums or Jewish community centers that how bad racism and anti-Semitism is. Now I'm saying this facetiously. Then if they don't care, then why would I care? Why would anyone else care? So I have days like that where I get up and I say, why am I doing this? Why, what is the point of this? Is it really helping? But other days, and most days, I get things like, boy, your book was amazing. Would you like to come and do a podcast with me? I have a good idea for you to do a book presentation. And that's what I want to do ultimately is get the book into classrooms. And it's very gratifying to me to be able to teach kids and adults about what my parents did. And sharing that story is just one part of it. And there's a lot of amazing Holocaust books. Mine's not the only one. My publishing company, Amsterdam Publishers, did many good books coming out of there. And I implore people to read as many as they can, including mine. But it's just so gratifying to hear people say that my dad was an amazing guy. It opened up their eyes to how people can treat each other and how the dark world is. And that's my function right now. That's my vector. That's my path right now, my pivot. And it's hard work. There's no doubt about it. And there's so many details to it, from when you start writing to getting it published, to book cover, testimonials. It's tons of work. But if you're motivated, it can be done. And it's a dream come true to have my book actually published by a traditional publisher, have it on the shelves at the Barnes and Noble. I'm proud and honored to say that I've done a book signing already at the United States Holocaust Museum in DC. That was a very great experience. A lot of kids, a lot of families, a lot of books sold, a lot of great discussion. And they've already invited me to come back, which is it's an honor just to get your book in the shelves there, let alone be invited twice to come back. And I did we did a book presentation last year at the Illinois Holocaust Museum, which was well received. I've got a really nice review from Raheem Thompson, who's an African-American gentleman, and he runs the place. He ran the program, and he wrote me a really nice LinkedIn recommendation, and that's very gratifying. And more of those are coming in. And I'm in talks with other Holocaust museums as well, Michigan, Houston, Long Island, and there's so many more that are untapped. So donated a lot of books to Holocaust museums, Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, the one in South Africa, a few down here in Florida. So either way, I may not get traction on those books, but if one person reads the book or 10 people read the book and it changes their attitude, or it makes them think twice about how we take things for granted in our free world, then I'm doing my job.
You're doing your job. Exactly. Oh my God. Exactly. I think that's the most significant thing. You feel you're doing your job and you're impacting lives through your book. Oh, let's talk about the awards that you've actually got. So you've got some awards. What did those awards, what do they mean to you and your mission? The awards
well, it was amazing because all 4 awards sort of came out within a month or two. They just all came out all at the same time.
Wow.
We started with the Nautilus Book Award, very prestigious, and then the Living Now Book Award, and then the National Indie Excellence Award, and finally the Reader's Favorite Book Award. And I don't know. I never expected that. I just didn't. I knew the book was good, but one award would be amazing. But it just tells me that people understand the importance and the quality of the work that we did. And believe me, there were many thousands of hours, a lot of time put into this, not just writing it, but editing it, making sure it's distributed correctly. And it's gratifying. I have to thank my team. If I didn't have this team, the guy that did the book cover, for example, beautiful book cover from Croatia, and I've never met him. I've never talked to him. We did it all online through email, the payment arrangement and the whole thing. Did a fantastic job. The testimonials, there's so many details to it, but that team, that sense of team the book isn't just a one-man show. It's not a one-person show. It's important to acknowledge the team, and I couldn't thank people enough. One of the guys that was along this journey with me the longest is my friend Mark. He runs my website. He's a tech guru. He's very good at technology, and he helped me get on the right path as far as getting this book going and moving and distributed. And he's helped me with the website and other advice too. So a whole slurry of people, video help. My nephew here in Florida, he's a videography. They have a studio that they run. And so we've done 3 or 4 book commercials, if you will, little shorts, 60 seconds to 2 minutes, and they're all excellent, well done. And they ran the show, and they didn't charge me an arm and a leg, which I'm fortunate because that is an expensive process. And he runs my YouTube channel too. So every time I do a podcast gets released, or a TV or radio interview, not radio as much, but TV interview and book presentations, I send it over to him. He loads it up on my YouTube channel. And now we've got about 30 videos and counting. But I have done more than that. But I mean, this one hopefully will be included as well. My last 5 podcasts, I had 2 in a row with Men of the Cloth. That weren't even from the United States. They were reverend and a priest, and 3 in a row before that were with fellow physicians like me. So it's great to be able to distribute the word and fight hatred at the same time, and then share Dad's story. So and the awards just reflect that. I mean, when people read the book, they say, "Wow, it's deserving," and I guess I have to agree. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not one to pat myself on the back. I keep looking forward to the next day. Like, how many more people can I get to enjoy the book and to share the story with me and hopefully with others over time.
Yeah. Right. So, anti-Semitism and racism are pressing issues today. As you know, you've written about it, you talk about it. How do you see your book contributing to the fight against these problems?
It's such a great question. I mean, we're doing it now. I mean, I don't know what your audience is, but if you've got an audience of 20 or 100, if 5% or 10% buy the book, and a certain percentage of them, they reach out to me and say, this was a great book, or they tell their friends about the book. Write a review is always helpful. I always ask people, please, it helps when you write an Amazon review or a Barnes and Noble review or a Goodreads review. You can use the same review. That all helps. Doing these book presentations helps too. I mean, educating a lot of people nationwide and apparently worldwide now with the podcasts, even more so. And also, again, I want the book to be taught in the classroom. I haven't really hit professors yet around the nation, but you have to pick and choose. Of course, it's the summer now, and I've been so busy trying to tell people about the book in other ways, especially social media, that I haven't really gotten to that section yet. However, a friend of mine from high school is a professor emeritus and out of South Carolina, and he's got a colleague, and they're interested in having me do book talk at University of South Carolina on campus in Hilton Head. So that's really an honor and a nice icebreaker. And then Holocaust museums. I don't say no to anybody. Anybody who asks me to do a talk or a podcast or a presentation, a book signing, I never say no. I mean, short of North Korea calling me or Iran and inviting me, which that's never going to happen. But to places I would never visit because guys like me would be dead on arrival. They just they don't like people like me. I mean, for whatever reason. It's too bad because I'm sure there are a lot of innocent people in these countries, but they're run by. I always like to say it's always one guy who ruins it for everybody, and it is so sad but true. The Adolf Hitler, the Pol Pot, the Fidel Castro. Osama bin Laden. It's always one guy that ruins it for everybody and drags everybody down. And we're seeing it now with in Gaza, and we're seeing it in Ukraine too. And the book resonates with today's world too. So you say, well, the events happened to my dad 80 years ago, 100 years ago. It's still the same thing. It's not, it's a different venue, it's a different scenery, it's a bit different backdrop, but the theme is the same, and it's ridiculous. And when people read it and they say, geez, my dad was lucky to be useful, because if he weren't, he would have been dead. He would have been killed like the 6 million other Jews. And World War II was sad too. I mean, of course, any war is sad, but World War II, it wasn't just the 6 million Jews. It was 50 million people died in that war. I'm talking about civilians, talking about Asia Pacific. We're talking about Christians. We're talking about men of the cloth. We're talking about the gay, the LGBTQs. people that were disabled, rabbis. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, it's just senseless death. 50 million people. I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine one person. It's too much. But and then God, you know, the Gaza incident, and you know, here we go again. You know, it's just it's so ridiculous.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. That actually brings me to this. You've donated so many copies of your books to various institutions up till now, including, I won't even mention, but what has been the response from these institutions? Because I know you want these books taught in school, recognized in school all over. So yeah.
It's hard. I mean, this is where I get discouraged because people are busy. You know, trying to do business with rabbis. I mean, rabbis aren't businessmen. Rabbis are they're men of the cloth. They teach the Torah. They teach religion. So sometimes Holocaust museums or certain institutes are run by rabbis, and they're busy. And they sometimes it's a budget issue. Sometimes they've got a little, but sometimes it's renovation of the institution. So things get put on the shelves. So it's difficult. You know, I donated to the Johannesburg Holocaust Museum, and it'd be great to get a book talk there. But I understand it's really hard to distribute books in South Africa. And you know, right now the attitude against Israel there, in some cases, is it's not. I don't think that environment is not conducive for me to be able to sell books there. But I would love to do a book presentation there. I have a connection in India. Dr. Burza, who's she's in LinkedIn. I met her through LinkedIn and some of these presentations, and she sponsored a talk by me, a presentation by the ISGAP, the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy, which is a great. That was the same week I was in the Washington D.C. for my book signing. So that was a fantastic week in April, not that long ago. And she liked my talk. She liked the book so much that she wants to invite me to India to maybe do a book presentation at the American Embassy in India. And I never thought India would support this kind of thing, and Israel as much as they do, but I'm pleasantly surprised. Now there's 1.5 billion people in India. They're not all racist. They're not all prejudiced. I know there's issues. India and Pakistan, the border countries, they've had their tensions over many years, and I never thought that Judaism or anti-Semitism would be an issue in India, and I'm not sure it is or not. But it makes it even more fantastic to see somebody like this professor, who that's all she does all her life is fight anti-Semitism. And she's an English professor too, and she's affiliated with some schools in the United States. But it's such an honor to be able to be invited to that. So, and I've only reached out to a small percentage of these Holocaust museums and Jewish community centers. It's tough. I mean, people, it's whether it's budgetary or people are just busy.
Yeah.
It's a hard world to penetrate because it is entertainment too, in a way. You know, it's still media and entertainment. Besides preaching about fighting hatred, it's still a form of entertainment. So you're competing with, you know, Netflix and Hulu and streaming and sports. We got the Olympics coming up. In Florida, it's tough. People want to play golf. They want to go to concerts. So there's all that too. It's a very tough thing. But I'm confident that we're going to get the book distributed a little bit more, and hopefully maybe someday a movie. That's another thing people say. You know, the book should be a movie. Well, we might talk to producers one day. We'll see. It's a long shot. But when you're talking about a guy who's escaped 4 times twice from forced labor camp in Nazi Hungary, and then as a medical student in communist Hungary, and then finally in '56 with my mom after the Hungarian Revolution, where they were frontliners, they said enough is enough. And my dad even missed an escape, so he went to the wrong train station. This was under communist Hungary, and everybody who went to the correct train station got arrested. So imagine the luck on this guy. I mean, it's you talk about the luck of the Irish. I'm not going to say the luck of the Jewish, because lately I don't know if we should feel so lucky, but the hand of God is how I like to put it. My dad really, the eye of God, the hand of God really protected my dad for whatever reason. And there's no sugarcoating in this book. A lot of his, friends and family perished, tortured, perished, imprisoned. Their uncle Lutzi, there's a chapter just about him, how he was tortured, imprisoned and tortured in the Soviet Union for 13 months. They thought it was because he held an illegal Jewish ceremony, my parents' wedding ceremony. Turns out they wanted him to be the scapegoat for Raoul Wallenberg's disappearance. They wanted to sign a document having him admit that he was responsible for the Raoul Wallenberg murder, and he wouldn't do it. So there's that chapter too. And then in between all those escapes, and my dad finally getting to go to medical school after a big delay because so many doctors were killed in World War II, and there was a big shortage there. Finally, my dad got in, and that's all he wanted to do was practice medicine. But he soon learned that he wanted to practice medicine in a free country as well, and not just under the Iron Curtain. So it's a lot. It's a lot to digest.
Right, right. What do you think is the most powerful lesson from your dad's story?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got disturbed.
What do you think is the most powerful lesson from your dad's story that can resonate with today's generation facing their own struggles and adversities?
It's such a great question, and there's about 50 of them. So I'm going to just start with some single word answers, and then I'll give you a bit a little longer. Determination, integrity,
right.
hope, just the survival, the need to survive. The fact that my dad never had PTSD afterwards, which is amazing. I don't know how most of us in the free world could survive and do what my dad did and be happy and not disabled or not depressed or whatever, no anxiety. Just my dad just went on. He was just determined. So determination is a big lesson. The other big lesson is we should appreciate what we have in this free world and not take it for granted. Like I said earlier, what happened to my dad could happen to any one of us. People that read this book, including myself, instead of just empathizing with my dad, they put themselves in his place and feel like it's them that's going through everything that's going through. So, which I owe my co-author that much to help me do that, to help enhance that experience where you can actually feel. And the other lessons for other people: if you're bored with your career, if you're bored with life, don't be bored. Change vectors. Do something else. Don't. Accountability is another important word. When we talk about, oh, this Jewish person, oh, this Chinese, after the COVID, people were blaming the Asians indiscriminately. And then after 9/11, blaming the Muslim population indiscriminately. And now after October 7th, the Jewish, ridiculous. Well, what do I have to do with Gaza? Accountability. Realize that people are people, good people are good people, bad people are bad people. But if you don't like what you're doing, do something else, change jobs, write a book, write a play, go to a play, go to the library, play around a golf, go see a concert, do something different with your life to keep it enhanced. Do something different to keep you motivated, because life is short, and you shouldn't be sitting around, scowling at what things have what life has to hand you. I think people can do, and also give back to the community. There's more to life than food, shelter, clothing. Of course, there's family. And I always say, God, family, country. And then I used to say sports and sports and bleep and music, but now sports, food, and music down the list. And, money and career down the list. To me, don't be so focused on money. Focus on, I'm going back to God, family, country, because my book covers all that. Not the United States as much as Hungary, but my parents' upbringing. But give back to the community. It's another important thing. Not just food and shelter. Give tzedakah, as it's a Hebrew word for charity. Give something back to the community. In my case, it's the book. And by the way, 10% of my author proceeds are going to the US Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And that's in my trust. That's in perpetuity. So, and I hope they end up getting a lot of money from this book in the long run. So there's a lot of messages that come out of this book, and the inspiration, the miracles, the need to fit in, but also the ability to be independent for long stretches of time when you have to, because sometimes you have to. As a medical student, as a resident, as a doctor, you got to be independent. You rely on a team, but you also need to rely on yourself as well. So I don't know, I just 100 messages that come out of this book, but those are the big ones. Is that that don't criticize our government as much as, well, read about you can criticize our government, of course, or England's government or Israel's government, but read about these governments, the Nazis and the communists, and realize, oh my God, you had no say in anything. You're either killed or tortured or just shut down. And that's what we don't have that here, fortunately, and I hope it never happens. But it's a big lesson.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. If we want to purchase your book, how do we purchase it? How do we buy it?
Well, if you want to know more about Not a Real Enemy and Hungary in general, including the Nazis and under Nazi regime and World War I even, and the communist regime, my website is robertjwolfmd.com. No E on the wolf, it's just one F, robertjwolfmd.com. I also have a YouTube channel, like I'd said, and it's Robert J. Wolfe, MD. If you just Google it, you'll find me. Or if you Google Not a Real Enemy, you'll find the book. So again, it's Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. And it's also available on Amazon, of course. It's paperback, hardback, ebook version, and I'm proud to say we're going to have the audio version released in about a month, which I'm really pleased about and looking forward to that. Also, Barnes and Noble and Walmart, Barnes and Noble, you can go into the brick and mortar stores, or you can find it online. Walmart online, and then Tufts University, my alma mater. It's on the shelves at the bookstore there. I'm pleased to say. And then it's also available at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in DC and the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center near Chicago, Illinois, and hopefully many more centers like that over time. But so it's easy to get, it's easy to find. Just Google Robert J. Wolfe, MD, or Not a Real Enemy. And I really appreciate you having me and asking about it. And I hope that this book touches other people's lives like it did mine and the people that have read it so far.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you everyone for listening. Actually, if you've been inspired, make sure you take action. Buy his book, visit his website, buy his book. I'm sure.
And reach out. Have me do book presentations, or come to the kids' classrooms for that kind of thing. Let's educate the kids. Let's fight hatred. Appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Shola. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And for more inspiring content, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast platforms as well. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Like, follow, comment. Until next time. Goodbye.